The information presented in this training is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. This presentation provides general information about employer and designated employer representative responsibilities under DOT drug and alcohol testing regulations. Specific compliance requirements may vary based on your company's size, operations, and other factors. Employers should consult with legal counsel and compliance professionals to ensure full compliance with 49 CFR Parts 40 and 382. This presentation is current as of January 2026, but regulations are subject to change.
Picture the open road at dawn. The sky is just starting to bleed from black to a soft orange, and the world is still quiet. But out on the highway, the steady rhythm of commerce has already begun. Tractor trailers, their headlights cutting through the last of the night, move like a great, powerful river across the country. Inside each cab is a professional, a person responsible for a vehicle weighing up to 80,000 pounds, carrying goods that power our lives. They are, in a very real sense, the lifeblood of our economy. They connect our cities, stock our shelves, and ensure the machinery of our world keeps turning. But with that incredible power comes an equally incredible responsibility. A responsibility not just to the cargo, but to every other car on that road, every family on their way to school or work. How do we, as a society, as employers, ensure that this immense trust is honored? How do we guarantee that every single person behind the wheel is fit for duty, clear-headed, and ready for the demands of the journey every single day? The answer isn't just technology or training. It starts with a person, a key figure in every transportation company, someone whose job it is to stand as a guardian of safety and compliance. This person is the designated employer representative. The title sounds formal, bureaucratic even, Designated Employer Representative, or DER. But don't let the name fool you. This isn't just a title you hand to someone in HR as an extra duty. The DER is the single most critical individual in a company's Department of Transportation drug and alcohol testing program. The official federal definition states that the DER is an employee authorized by the employer to take immediate action. That's the key phrase, immediate action. They can remove employees from safety-sensitive duties, and they're empowered to make the required decisions throughout the entire testing and evaluation process. This role is the central hub, the command center for the entire program. All communications, all results, all crucial decisions flow through this one individual. To truly grasp the weight of this role, you have to understand its three core responsibilities. First, the DER is the primary contact for receiving all test results. When a driver provides a specimen at a collection site, it begins a carefully controlled journey. It goes to a laboratory for analysis, and then the results are reviewed and verified by a licensed physician known as a medical review officer, or MRO. It is the MRO who reports the final verified result, whether positive, negative, or a refusal to test, and they report it directly to the DER, no one else. The DER is the sole gatekeeper of this sensitive, confidential information. They must understand the nuances of the results and be prepared to act on them instantly. This brings us to the second and perhaps most significant responsibility, the authority to immediately remove a driver from duty. This is not a suggestion, it is a non-delegable power. If the DER receives a verified positive drug test result or an alcohol test result of 0.04 or greater, or is informed of a refusal to test, they are required by federal law to immediately remove that employee from performing any safety-sensitive function. This means they can no longer be behind the wheel of a commercial motor vehicle. There is no waiting for a supervisor's approval, no committee meeting, no 2-week notice. The action must be swift and decisive because public safety is on the line. The DER is the person who makes that call, who picks up the phone and says, "You need to pull over. Your shift is over." It's a heavy burden, but an absolutely necessary one. The third core responsibility is making the critical calls. This isn't just about reacting to test results that come in. The DER is proactive. They're the ones who must make the decision to send an employee for a reasonable suspicion test. This requires them to act on observations from a trained supervisor who has documented specific, contemporaneous, and articulable signs of drug or alcohol use. It's a judgment call with serious implications. Similarly, the DER determines what constitutes a refusal to test. Did a driver fail to show up for a random test? Did they tamper with a specimen? The regulations have very clear definitions, and the DER must know them inside and out to make the correct, legally defensible determination. These decisions carry the full weight of federal regulation behind them. And that weight is why this authority cannot be outsourced. Many companies, especially smaller ones, hire what are called service agents, like a consortium or a third-party administrator, a CTPA, to help manage the logistics of their testing program. These agents are invaluable. They can handle random selections, coordinate with labs and collection sites, and manage paperwork. But what they absolutely cannot do is serve as the DER. The final responsibility, the ultimate decision-making power to act on a result or a suspicion, must reside with an actual employee of the company. Why? Because the employer is ultimately accountable. You cannot outsource accountability. The buck has to stop somewhere, and federal regulations say it stops with the DER, an employee who is part of your organization and vested in its safety culture. The foundation of the DER's authority and the entire compliance program is a single vital document, the written policy. This is not just a recommendation or a best practice, it is a mandatory requirement under Federal Regulation 49 CFR Part 382. A company without a compliant written policy is a company that is fundamentally non-compliant. This document is the constitution for your safety program. It must, at a minimum, lay out several key pieces of information. It needs to identify the DER by name or position so every employee knows exactly who is in charge. It has to clearly state which categories of drivers are subject to testing. It needs to detail in plain language the specific conduct that is prohibited, from using alcohol on duty to using illegal drugs at any time. The policy must also meticulously explain the circumstances for testing. What triggers a test? It has to cover them all: pre-employment, post-accident, random selection, reasonable suspicion, return to duty, and follow-up testing. Each of these has specific criteria that must be followed, and your policy must reflect that. Crucially, it must also provide a clear and comprehensive definition of what actions constitute a refusal to test. This prevents ambiguity and ensures everyone understands the rules of the game. And finally, the policy must outline the consequences of a violation. There is no ambiguity here. A violation requires immediate removal from all safety-sensitive duties. It must also explain the path back, if there is one, the stringent multi-step return to duty process overseen by a substance abuse professional. This policy isn't meant to be a secret document locked in a filing cabinet. It must be a living part of your organization. Every single driver must receive a copy of this policy before they perform any safety-sensitive functions for you. Not on the first day, not during the first week, but before. And you, the employer, must have proof. You are required to obtain a signed statement from each employee certifying that they have received the policy and understand its contents. This signed receipt is more than just a piece of paper. It's a critical piece of your record keeping. It's your proof of due diligence, confirming that every driver was made aware of the rules they are expected to follow. But a policy is only as effective as the people who enforce it and abide by it. That's why education is the second pillar of this foundation, just as critical as the policy itself. This education is twofold, targeting both supervisors and drivers. Anyone in your company who oversees a driver, even if they have only one person reporting to them, is considered a supervisor and must receive mandatory training. This isn't a quick orientation. The regulations require at least 60 minutes of training focused on the signs and symptoms of alcohol misuse, and a separate 60 minutes on the signs of drug use. This training is what empowers them to make those difficult but essential reasonable suspicion determinations. It gives them the tools to recognize potential impairment, to document it properly, and to report it to the DER with confidence. Without this training, your reasonable suspicion testing program has no teeth. At the same time, your drivers must also be provided with educational materials. These materials need to clearly explain the requirements of the DOT regulations and reiterate the company's specific policies on drugs and alcohol. It should cover what's expected of them, what their rights are, and what the consequences are for violating the rules. This isn't about scaring them, it's about empowering them with knowledge. An informed driver is a safer driver, one who understands that the rules are in place not to punish, but to protect everyone on the road. It ensures that before their journey ever begins, they understand the non-negotiable standards of their profession. So when you pull all of these pieces together, the picture becomes clear. The designated employer representative is not just an administrator. They are the central authority, the linchpin holding the entire structure together. The written policy is the rule book, the clear and unwavering standard that everyone must follow. And the education program is the tool that empowers every single person, from the newest driver to the most senior supervisor, to understand their role and contribute to a culture of safety.
Today, we're going to discuss the responsibilities of employers and designated employer representatives, or DERs, under the Department of Transportation's drug and alcohol testing regulations. Now, if you're a driver, you might be thinking, this sounds like management stuff. Why do I need to know about employer responsibilities? Here's why. Understanding what your employer is required to do is the best way to understand your own rights. It ensures you're being treated fairly and that the process is being followed correctly. Imagine you get a call for a random test. Do you know the exact procedure that must be followed from that moment on? Knowing the rules protects you and your career. And if you're an owner-operator, you're wearing two hats at all times. You have the responsibilities of a driver and the responsibilities of an employer, so this information is doubly important for you. The buck stops with you in every sense of the word. For those of you who are employers, motor carriers, or DERs, this is your playbook for legal obligation under federal law. And let's be crystal clear, these aren't suggestions, they are requirements. Failure to comply is not a minor slip-up. It can result in crippling fines. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars per violation. It can mean the loss of your operating authority, effectively shutting your business down overnight. And most importantly, it can lead to serious, tragic safety consequences on our roads. This isn't just about paperwork, it's about public safety. It's about lives. So, over the next few minutes, we're going to break all of this down. We'll start by defining who exactly is considered an employer under these rules, because it's broader than you might think. We'll dive deep into the role of the Designated Employer Representative, or DER, a critical position that serves as the nerve center for any compliance program. We'll talk about your responsibilities with the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, proper procedures for testing, what records you must keep, and finally, we'll touch on the consequences of non-compliance. So let's start with that first big question. Who is an employer? Under the DOT regulations, the definition is broad. An employer is any person or entity that employs one or more employees subject to DOT drug and alcohol testing. This obviously includes motor carriers with company drivers, the traditional model everyone thinks of, but it goes further. It includes owner-operators who hire other drivers to work under their authority. It includes leasing companies, so if you lease trucks and drivers to another company, you may still hold some of these responsibilities. It also includes temporary staffing agencies that provide drivers. If your business is placing CDL drivers in safety-sensitive positions, you are part of this regulatory framework. But here's the one that often catches people by surprise. Owner-operators operating under their own authority. Even if you only employ yourself, if it's just you, your truck, and the open road, the law sees you as two distinct entities. You are the employee who drives the truck, and you are the employer who manages the business. You're your own boss and your own employee, and you must follow the rules for both roles. If you have a US DOT number and you operate a commercial motor vehicle that requires a CDL, you are an employer, period. This brings us to one of the most crucial roles in this entire process, the Designated Employer Representative, or DER. The official definition is the person authorized by the employer to take immediate action to remove employees from safety-sensitive duties and to make required decisions in the testing and evaluation process. Let's unpack that. The key phrase there is immediate action. The DER is not just an administrative assistant who files paperwork. This person is the firewall. They are the nerve center of your entire drug and alcohol program. This is a position of significant legal authority and responsibility. When a call comes in from a medical review officer with a verified positive test result at 2 in the morning on a Saturday, the DER doesn't wait for a meeting on Monday. They act now. Their responsibilities are extensive. The DER is the official recipient of all drug and alcohol test results. This is confidential, critical information, and they are the gatekeeper. They are the one person who has the authority to immediately remove a driver from safety-sensitive duties. This means making the call, sending the text, whatever it takes to get that driver out behind the wheel. The DER also makes the tough calls about reasonable suspicion testing. It can't be based on a whim or a rumor. It has to be based on specific, contemporaneous, and articulable observations concerning a driver's appearance, behavior, speech, or body odors. The DER has to be trained to make that objective call. They're also responsible for ensuring any driver who has a violation completes the entire return-to-duty process before ever getting back in a truck. And on the administrative side, they're the ones conducting the required clearinghouse queries before hiring a driver, and they're responsible for reporting any violations to the clearinghouse within a strict time frame. They maintain all the required records and serve as the main point of contact for drivers, testing facilities, and even the FMCSA during an audit. So who can fill this critical role? It can be the owner of the company, a manager, a supervisor, an HR professional, or a dedicated compliance officer. But whoever it is, they must be reachable. The regulations require that a DER be available to receive test results and take action 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's why many companies designate a primary and secondary DER, or they choose to outsource this function to a third-party administrator, or TPA, to ensure there is never a gap in coverage. This isn't a hat you can just hand to someone. The person in this role must be thoroughly trained and must understand the full weight and legal authority that comes with it. Now, let's circle back to the owner-operator. This is where a unique and non-negotiable rule comes into play. If you're an owner-operator, you are both the driver and the employer. However, you absolutely cannot serve as your own DER for certain critical functions. Think about it. It creates an impossible conflict of interest. How can you objectively receive your own positive test result from a lab and then officially remove yourself from duty? How can you make an unbiased, documented decision to send yourself for a reasonable suspicion test? The regulations are specifically designed to prevent this. They ensure there is always an objective, impartial party involved to maintain the integrity of the process. This is where a consortium or a third-party administrator, or TPA, becomes absolutely essential for an owner-operator. You contract with a TPA to act as your DER. They're the ones who are officially listed to receive your confidential test results from the medical review officer. They manage your enrollment in a random testing pool, which is a requirement. They're the ones who will notify you when you've been selected for a random test. They're the objective third party that the entire system requires. For an owner-operator, signing up with a reputable TPA is not just a good idea or a best practice, it is a fundamental requirement for compliance. They provide that necessary, mandated separation between the employer hat and the employee hat, ensuring the rules are followed impartially, even when both hats are worn by the same person. Ultimately, none of this is about checking boxes or navigating bureaucratic red tape for the sake of it.
Every single one of these regulations, the definition of an employer, the immense responsibility of the DER, the necessary role of a TPA, is in place for a reason. Often, these rules were written in response to a tragedy that could have been prevented. The roles of employer and designated employer representative are not just titles on a business card. They are guardians. They are the front line in protecting the public and the driver from the catastrophic consequences of impairment on our highways. Understanding these responsibilities and executing them flawlessly is one of the most important jobs you have. It ensures that at the end of every run, on every road, everyone gets home safe.
A policy is a promise. Education is knowledge. But how do we verify that our commitment to a drug and alcohol-free workplace is a reality? The answer lies in the testing program. This is the backbone of Department of Transportation compliance, a structured, regulated process designed to detect and deter the misuse of drugs and alcohol by those in safety-sensitive roles. It's a system built on 6 distinct pillars of testing, each with a specific purpose. It begins before the engine even turns over, with pre-employment testing. This is the mandatory first step. No driver can perform a safety-sensitive function until their employer receives a verified negative drug test result. There's no gray area here. A negative result is the non-negotiable green light for a driver to get on the road, the first checkpoint in their journey with your company. On the other end of the spectrum are the tests that represent a second chance, a path to redemption. These are the return to duty and follow-up tests. They're required for any driver who has violated the rules and is seeking to return to their safety-sensitive duties. This isn't a simple process. The return to duty test must be directly observed, a measure to ensure its integrity. And it doesn't end there. Following that, a substance abuse specialist, or SAP, directs a follow-up plan. This plan is rigorous, requiring a minimum of 6 unannounced tests in the first year alone. The SAP can mandate more for up to 5 years. This structured process ensures that a driver's return to the road is earned through proven, demonstrated compliance. It's a carefully managed journey back to a position of trust. So we have the beginning and the path back, but what about all the time in between? This is where the core 3 types of testing come into play: random, reasonable suspicion, and post-accident. First, let's talk about random testing. This is the program's single greatest deterrent. Its power lies in its uncertainty. Each year, companies must test a specific percentage of their drivers. Currently, that's 50% for drugs and 10% for alcohol. But the key here is how these drivers are selected. The selection must be scientifically valid. This isn't about drawing names from a hat or picking someone who looks tired. It means every driver in the pool has an equal chance of being selected each and every time a selection is made. It has to be spread reasonably throughout the year, not all clumped together in December, and most importantly, it must be unannounced. The driver should have no idea it's coming until the moment they are notified. That unpredictability is what makes it so effective. It creates a constant state of accountability. Next is reasonable suspicion. This is one of the most challenging yet critical responsibilities for a supervisor. A test can only be ordered when a trained supervisor observes specific, contemporaneous, and articulable signs of drug or alcohol use. Let's break that down, because this isn't a hunch, it's a legal standard. Specific and contemporaneous means you are witnessing signs right now, based on what you see, hear, or smell. Is their speech slurred? Do they seem disoriented? Can you smell alcohol? These are observations of appearance, behavior, speech, and body odor. Articulable means you must be able to state clearly and in detail what you observed. You have to document it. What exactly did you see? What did you hear? What did you smell that led you to believe a violation was occurring? This is why supervisor training isn't just a good idea, it is the law. It protects everyone. It ensures a decision to test is based on objective facts, not personal feelings. Finally, there's post-accident. In the chaotic moments after an accident, these rules provide clarity. They are precise and they must be followed exactly. The decision to test hinges on a clear set of criteria. The first question is always the most serious. Did the accident involve a human fatality? If the answer is yes, a test is automatically required for any surviving commercial driver, no exceptions. If the accident was not fatal, the decision depends on two factors: the severity of any injuries and whether a citation is issued. A test is required if a driver receives a citation and someone requires immediate medical treatment away from the scene. A test is also required if a driver receives a citation and one or more vehicles incurs disabling damage, meaning it has to be towed away. If there's no citation issued to your driver, or if the injuries are minor and the vehicles can be driven away, then a test is not required under DOT rules. Knowing this decision tree is essential, and when a test is required, time is of the essence. For alcohol, the test must be conducted within 8 hours. For drugs, within 32 hours. If you can't meet these deadlines for any reason, you must document precisely why. Every minute counts. So, regardless of which of these 6 pillars triggers a test, the process that follows is standardized, designed for accuracy and fairness. It begins with the collection. A driver provides a specimen, typically urine, and every step is meticulously documented on a federal custody and control form, often called the CCF. Think of this form as the specimen's passport. It travels with the sealed sample, creating an unbroken chain of custody. Next is the lab analysis. The specimen is sent to a Health and Human Services certified laboratory. Here, it undergoes sophisticated scientific testing. An initial screen looks for the presence of specific drugs. If that screen is positive, a second, more precise confirmation test is performed to identify the exact drug and its metabolite. But the lab's result is not the final word. This leads to the most crucial step, the Medical Review Officer, or MRO. The MRO is a licensed physician who acts as an independent and impartial gatekeeper. The MRO reviews the lab results. If the result is positive, the MRO's most important job begins. They will conduct a confidential interview with the driver to determine if there's a legitimate medical explanation for the result. Is there a valid prescription that could explain the finding? This is the critical human element that ensures fairness in the process. Only after this thorough review does the MRO make a final determination. This leads to the fourth and final step, the final result. The MRO reports the result, either positive, negative, or perhaps a refusal to test, securely to the designated employer representative. The DOT testing program is more than a checklist. It's a dynamic system designed to ensure that every driver on the road is ready for the immense responsibility they hold. Pre-employment testing guards the gate, return to duty provides a strict path back, and the core 3, the constant possibility of a random test, the watchful eye of a trained supervisor, and the rigid clarity of post-accident rules, uphold the standard every single day. Understanding when and how to test is fundamental. It is the framework that turns a promise of safety into a provable reality, protecting the driver, the public, and the integrity of the entire industry. This isn't just about compliance, it's about upholding the trust we place in our drivers every time they get behind the wheel.
Let's talk about something that directly affects your ability to keep your CDL and continue working as a professional driver: the Department of Transportation's drug and alcohol testing regulations. I know regulations can seem overwhelming, but understanding these rules is about more than just staying compliant. It's about protecting your career, your safety, and the safety of everyone else on the road. Whether you're a company driver or an owner-operator, these regulations apply to you, and knowing them inside and out is absolutely essential. We're going to break down the key regulations, explain what they mean in plain language, and show you exactly what you need to do. By the time we're done, you'll be able to identify the 2 main federal regulations, explain the difference between them, understand who is subject to testing and when it happens, recognize what they're testing for, and describe the consequences of a violation. When it comes to DOT drug and alcohol testing, everything starts with 2 core federal regulations. Think of them as the official rule book for staying drug and alcohol free in the transportation industry. The first one is 49 CFR Part 40. You can think of this as the how-to manual for all DOT-mandated drug and alcohol testing, no matter what type of transportation work you do. Whether you're driving a truck, flying a plane, or operating a train, Part 40 sets the universal standard procedures that everyone, everywhere, must follow. It covers 3 critical areas. First, specimen collection and testing. This regulation spells out precisely how urine and breath samples must be collected, handled, and analyzed. These strict procedures ensure that every test is done in a scientifically sound and legally defensible way. When you go to a collection site, the person there is following Part 40 procedures to the letter, all to protect the integrity of your sample. Second, Part 40 dictates how results are reported. It establishes the formal process for how test results are communicated to employers and, as of January 2020, to the FMCSA Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. This system ensures that any violations are properly documented and that drivers who have an issue get the appropriate intervention they need. And third, it outlines the return to duty process. If a driver does have a violation, Part 40 specifies the exact steps that must be taken before that driver can get back to safety-sensitive work. This isn't arbitrary. It includes a formal evaluation by a substance abuse professional, the completion of any required treatment or education, and finally, passing a specific return to duty test. So, that's Part 40, the Universal Rule Book. The second key regulation is 49 CFR Part 382. While Part 40 provides the general framework for everyone, Part 382 contains the specific drug and alcohol testing rules just for the trucking industry. It answers 3 essential questions for anyone with a CDL. First, who gets tested? The answer is all drivers who operate a commercial motor vehicle that requires a CDL on public roads. This includes company drivers and owner-operators alike. If you hold a CDL and drive a commercial vehicle, you are subject to these regulations. Second, when does testing occur? Part 382 specifies the exact circumstances under which you must be tested. It covers pre-employment screening before you can even start a job. It mandates random testing throughout the year. It requires post-accident testing under certain conditions. It also includes testing based on reasonable suspicion, as well as the return to duty and follow-up tests we mentioned earlier. And third, it clearly defines what drug and alcohol-related behavior is not allowed. This isn't just about testing positive. It also includes refusing to take a test, attempting to adulterate a sample, or using alcohol within 4 hours of going on duty. You might be wondering why there are 2 separate regulations. The reason is simple and effective. Part 40 ensures consistency across all modes of transportation. The procedures for a truck driver being tested in California are the same as for a pilot in New York or a railroad engineer in Texas. This universal standard guarantees fairness and integrity in the process itself. Then, Part 382 layers on the specific requirements for our industry, the trucking industry, defining exactly who needs to be tested and under what circumstances. Together, these 2 regulations create a comprehensive system. It's a system designed not to punish, but to protect. It's there to keep impaired drivers off the road and to ensure that those who do violate the rules get the help they need before returning to the driver's seat. Knowing these rules isn't a burden, it's a mark of professionalism. It's your responsibility, your protection, and your key to a long and safe career on the open road. Before we begin, a quick note. The information presented here is for educational purposes only and isn't medical or legal advice. This is a general overview of the FMCSA Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. For specific questions about your record, you need to talk to your company's designated employer representative or contact the FMCSA directly. Always use official FMCSA guidance as your final source of information. For decades, the trucking industry had a serious blind spot. A driver could fail a drug test with one employer, get fired, then just cross state lines, apply to a new company, and get back behind the wheel. The new employer might never know about the violation. That dangerous loophole meant drivers who should have been off the road could keep on driving simply by hopping from one job to the next. Those days are officially over. The solution? Launched back in January 2020, is the FMCSA Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. Think of it as a secure, centralized database for the entire country. It tracks every single drug and alcohol program violation for every CDL holder. It doesn't matter if it's a positive test result, a refusal to test, or another violation. It all goes into the clearinghouse. The entire point is to make sure that a violation follows the driver, not the employer. It ensures that if a driver has an issue, they have to complete the official return to duty process with a substance abuse professional before they can legally operate a commercial vehicle again. There's no more hiding, no more starting fresh in a new state without resolving the problem first. For you, as a professional driver, understanding and using the system isn't just a good idea, it is absolutely essential to your career. So, what exactly gets reported? It's a comprehensive list. Positive drug and alcohol tests, anytime a driver refuses to take a test, and records showing when a driver has successfully completed their return to duty requirements. This information isn't public, of course. Access is tightly controlled. The FMCSA has full access for enforcement. State driver licensing agencies can see it to make sure you meet state CDL requirements, and employers can query the system, but only with your consent. They'll run a query before they hire you, and at least once a year after that. As the driver, you have the right to see your own record anytime you want, free of charge. This system makes the roads safer for everyone by ensuring every driver out here is qualified and compliant. Now, for the most critical part, you have to be registered. This is not optional. Every single CDL driver is required to have a clearinghouse account. You'll need it to give electronic consent for those pre-employment queries when you're applying for a new job. It's also the only way you can view your own record to make sure everything on it is accurate. So let's walk through exactly how to get registered. It's a multi-step process, but it's straightforward if you know what to expect. First, you'll need a computer or smartphone with an internet connection. When you go to the official website, clearinghouse.fmcsa.dot.gov, you'll see the main homepage with options to either log in or register. You'll want to click the Register button to get started. From there, the system will direct you to create a login.gov account. This is the federal government's secure sign-in service used across many different agencies. If you've used other federal sites, you might already have an account. If not, you'll need to create one. For this, you'll need a valid email address, a phone number you can get texts on for two-factor authentication, and a current government-issued photo ID, like your driver's license or a passport. You'll enter your email, create a strong password, and then set up the two-factor authentication. This is a crucial security step, where they send a code to your phone that you have to enter to prove it's you. Next, you have to verify your identity. This involves taking a clear photo of your ID and a selfie, which you'll upload directly to the site. A common hang-up here is blurry photos, so make sure your pictures are clear and well lit, and that your ID is not expired. Keep your login.gov password somewhere safe because you'll need it every time you access the clearinghouse. Once your login.gov account is set, you'll be sent back to the clearinghouse to finish your profile. This is where you enter your personal information, your full legal name, exactly as it appears on your CDL, your date of birth, and your CDL number and issuing state. Be meticulous here. Any small mismatch between what you enter and what's on your license can cause major headaches when a potential employer tries to run a query on you. Next, you'll be asked to select your role. As a driver, you'll choose driver. Now, if you're an owner-operator, you wear two hats. You're both the driver and the employer, so you'll need to register with both roles, driver and employer. This is a key distinction because owner-operators have employer-side responsibilities, like running queries on themselves. After selecting your role, you'll get one final chance to review all the information you've entered. Double-check your name and CDL number one last time. When you're sure it's perfect, hit submit, you'll get a confirmation email, and your registration is complete. If you run into any technical problems, don't just guess. The Clearinghouse Help Desk is available to walk you through it. Their number is 1-833-327-2367. Ultimately, the Clearinghouse is a permanent part of this industry. It holds both drivers and employers to a higher standard of safety and accountability. Getting registered isn't just another piece of paperwork. It's a fundamental requirement for maintaining your CDL and your livelihood. So if you haven't done it yet, make it your top priority. Your career depends on it. Understanding what gets you in hot water with the DOT is critical because the consequences are severe and they are immediate. A violation isn't just one thing, it's a category of actions that includes testing positive for any prohibited substance, having a blood alcohol concentration of 0.04 or greater, or outright refusing to test. And that refusal to test is treated exactly the same as a positive result. A refusal isn't just saying no, it can mean failing to show up for a test, not providing enough of a breath or urine sample without a legitimate medical reason, or failing to cooperate with any part of the process. Trying to cheat the test by adulterating or substituting a specimen, like adding something to your sample or providing someone else's, is also an automatic violation. The moment a violation occurs, the consequences begin. You will be immediately removed from all safety-sensitive duties. That means you are not driving a commercial motor vehicle until you complete the entire multi-step return-to-duty process. This isn't something that gets handled quietly. The violation is reported to the FMCSA Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, creating a permanent record that current and future employers can and will access. This record isn't a short-term problem. The violation remains in the clearinghouse for a minimum of 5 years, or even longer if it takes you more time to complete the return-to-duty process. And while DOT regulations don't explicitly require your employer to fire you, many companies have zero-tolerance policies. A violation very often means losing your job. So what does the road back look like after a violation? It's a long and costly process known as return to duty. Following this path correctly is your only way back into the driver's seat, and it starts with an evaluation by a substance abuse professional, or SAP. This isn't just a quick chat. An SAP is a licensed or certified professional who will conduct a face-to-face evaluation to determine what kind of assistance you need, whether that's education, treatment, or a combination of both. You'll then have to complete every single program your SAP recommends. This could mean outpatient counseling, inpatient treatment, or specific education programs. Once you've completed that, your SAP will conduct a follow-up evaluation. They need to be convinced that you understand what you've learned and that you're less likely to violate the rules in the future. If you can't articulate that, they can and will recommend more interventions. Only after the SAP determines you've complied can you move to the next step, passing a return-to-duty drug and/or alcohol test, which is always conducted under direct observation. And even then, you're not done. Your SAP will create a follow-up testing plan that includes at least 6 unannounced tests in the first 12 months you're back on duty, and this follow-up testing can continue for up to 5 years. It's crucial to understand that you, the driver, bear the full financial burden of this process. SAP evaluation fees can run from $600 to $1,500. Treatment programs can cost thousands, and you'll have to pay for the return to duty and all subsequent follow-up tests, not to mention the massive hit from lost wages while you're unable to work. For owner-operators, it gets even worse. A violation of these regulations, known as 49 CFR Part 40, is considered a high-risk major infraction by insurance companies, similar to a DUI. Your insurance premiums can skyrocket by 100 to 300%, or your carrier could simply cancel your policy altogether. This violation negatively impacts your CSA score and will stay on your motor vehicle record for years, making affordable insurance nearly impossible to find. On top of these standing rules, the regulatory landscape is always changing. As of January 10, 2026, the way medical certifications are verified has shifted completely. Certified medical examiners must now submit exam results electronically to the National Registry by midnight the day after the exam. Paper certificates are no longer sufficient. Employers now have to verify your medical certification exclusively through your motor vehicle record, or MVR. For owner-operators, this means you must ensure your status is current in your state's system. Another major point of confusion right now is marijuana. In December of 2025, President Trump issued an executive order to reschedule marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3. It is absolutely critical to understand that for a professional driver, this changes nothing. Marijuana, in any form, remains strictly prohibited under DOT regulations. The rescheduling process itself takes months, and even after it's complete, the DOT has made it clear that its rules will not change. State laws legalizing marijuana are irrelevant to your federal requirements. You must continue to avoid all marijuana use, including medical marijuana and CBD products, as testing will continue as usual. Looking ahead, the DOT is also expanding its testing panel. In September 2025, a proposal was made to add fentanyl to the standard drug test, a change expected to be finalized in early 2026. This will be the most significant expansion of DOT drug testing in years, adding fentanyl to both urine and oral fluid panels. So let's recap the most important takeaways. 2 core regulations govern everything: 49 CFR Part 40 for testing procedures, and Part 382 for FMCSA specific rules. Every single CDL driver is subject to testing. There are no exceptions. The 5-panel drug test screens for marijuana, cocaine, amphetamines, opiates, and PCP, with fentanyl being added soon. A violation has serious, immediate, and expensive consequences. Your responsibilities as a professional driver are clear. You must submit to all required tests, avoid all prohibited substances, understand that even some legal prescription medications can be disqualifying, maintain your consent in the Clearinghouse, and stay informed about these regulatory changes. Compliance isn't optional. It's a fundamental condition of holding your CDL. For more detailed information, visit the FMCSA website, access the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse directly, or speak with your employer's designated employer representative. Ultimately, understanding and following these regulations is about more than just keeping your job. It's about protecting your career, your livelihood, and the safety of everyone on our roads.
It's January. You're planning your year, managing your fleet, keeping your drivers safe and on the road. Then you open your mail. You see an official-looking letter with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration logo. You open it and your stomach drops. It's a notice from the FMCSA requesting your annual drug and alcohol testing data. It's called the MIS report, and it's due by March 15th. The fine print is what gets you. If you don't respond, you could face penalties of up to $1,000 per day. Every year, thousands of employers just like you get this notice. Some are prepared, some are not. The difference can cost you a fortune and your compliance record. Today, we're going to walk through everything you need to know so you can handle this with confidence and avoid those penalties. Let me tell you about 2 companies. Let's call them Mike's Trucking and Valley Transport. Mike runs a small company with 15 drivers. Every single year in January, he prepares his MIS report, even if he hasn't been asked to submit it. So when the FMCSA notified him last year, he was ready. He logged into the system, submitted his report by February 15th, and got back to running his business. Valley Transport, on the other hand, didn't prepare anything in advance. When they got the notification, they panicked. They realized their testing data was scattered across multiple third-party administrators. They scrambled. They missed the March 15th deadline by 2 weeks. The penalty? $14,000. The difference wasn't the size of their fleet, it was preparation and understanding. Today, you're going to become like Mike. The rule you need to know is 49 CFR 382.403. It says every FMCSA regulated employer has to prepare and maintain an annual summary of their drug and alcohol testing program. Here's the part that trips everyone up. There are two separate requirements. Understanding this distinction is everything. First, every single motor carrier must prepare their previous year's MIS report. You do this every January. You must have it ready. You must keep it in a safe, secure location for 5 years. You have to make it available for inspection if an official ever asks for it. This is mandatory for everyone, every year, no exceptions, whether you have 1 driver or 1,000. Second, only employers selected by the FMCSA must submit that report. The FMCSA uses a random selection process. If you're chosen, you'll get that notification in January with instructions on how to submit it electronically. You won't know if you're selected until that letter or email arrives. That's why you have to prepare the report every year, regardless. If you're selected, you have until March 15th to get it in, and they expect a 100% response rate. Miss that deadline, and the clock starts ticking at $1,000 a day. So what's actually in this report? It's not as intimidating as it sounds. The form has 4 main sections. Section 1 is just your basic employer information, company name, address, US DOT number. Section 2 is about your covered employees, the total number of safety-sensitive drivers you had during the year. Sections 3 and 4 are the core of the report, your drug and alcohol testing data. This means the number of tests you conducted, broken down by type, pre-employment, random, post-accident, and so on. It also includes the number of positive results for each substance and the number of test refusals. That's it, 4 sections. Your consortium or third-party administrator, your CTPA, should have all of this data ready for you. If you manage your own program, you'll compile it from your records. Now let's talk about how to submit it. You have to use the DOT's online portal, which is called DAMIS, the Drug and Alcohol Information System. And as of 2024, there's a new step. You must access DAMIS through login.gov. This is a secure sign-in service used across government agencies. If you don't have a login.gov account, you'll need to create one. It's free. You'll just need an email and a phone number to set up authentication. Don't wait until March 14th to do this. If you get selected, set up your account immediately. Once your login.gov account is ready, you'll go to the DAMIS website, damis.dot.gov/login, and sign in. You'll see the MIS data collection form. You'll fill in those 4 sections we just talked about. Double-check your numbers. Accuracy is critical. And here is the most important step of the submission. At the end of the form, you, the employer, must certify that the information is accurate and complete. This is usually done by the Designated Employer Representative, or DER. You check the box, and then you click Submit. You should get a confirmation that your report was received. Save it, print it, keep that confirmation with your records. It's your proof of compliance. This brings up a critical point about responsibility, especially for owner-operators and those who use a CTPA. If you're a solo owner-operator, you might think this doesn't apply. It does. If you employ even one safety-sensitive employee, and that includes yourself, you must prepare the report annually and submit it if you're selected. If you're a fleet manager, you might think my CTPA handles all this for us. This is a dangerous assumption. Your CTPA can and should help you prepare the report. They have the data, but the legal responsibility to certify its accuracy and ensure it's submitted on time falls on you, the employer. You cannot delegate that final responsibility. Review the report your CTPA gives you. Make sure it's correct. You are the one who has to stand behind it. So here's your action plan. This January, contact your CTPA or gather your testing records from the previous year. Prepare your MIS report using the official form. Have it done by the end of the month. Then store that completed report in a safe place. You'll need to keep it for 5 years. Throughout January, check your mail and email for that FMCSA notification. If you don't get one, you weren't selected this year, but you still have your prepared report on file, ready for any inspection. If you are selected, create your login.gov account right away. Then log in to DAMIS, enter your data, certify it, and submit it well before the March 15th deadline. And finally, save your confirmation receipt. Remember where we started? An unexpected letter, a looming deadline, the threat of a heavy fine? But now you know the process. You understand the two-tier system of preparing versus submitting. You have a step-by-step plan. This isn't just about avoiding penalties. The data you report helps the FMCSA understand industry-wide safety trends and improve the programs that keep our roads safe. When you file your MIS report accurately and on time, you're not just checking a box, you're contributing to a safer transportation system for everyone. MIS reporting doesn't have to be stressful. With the right knowledge and preparation, it's just another part of being a responsible, compliant employer. You've got this.